All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with a blank texture. So I'm going to move right here to the side, and I'm going to create a plane. I'm going to make sure that this plane is connecting to the grid. So under snappings, I'm going to make sure I have grid points enabled, and then snap it to the grid. Make sure it's a perfect square. FYI, right now I actually have auto grid enabled, so it's actually giving me, it's not snapping the way I would want it to. So let me disable that. Under plane, disable auto grid. Now we'll snap onto one point to another. Great. Next is we start aligning things onto the canvas. So I need to create some bricks, but understand that these bricks were created in ZBrush, right? So I need to prep this for ZBrush. I need to create some assets to import into ZBrush to get ready to sculpt on. So what I'll do is I'll create a brick, I'll create a box. I'll go to, yeah, I don't need auto grid for this, just a box. I'll snap it onto my grid. So let me make sure my grid's on. Snap. All right. Nice brick like that. I'll add a chamfer. Press F4. Let me remove some of these points. Okay. And I'll add turbo smooth. The only reason you want to add turbo smooth is to get an idea of how your asset's going to basically smoothen over inside of turbo smooth or instead of ZBrush, because ZBrush, what it does is that it subdivides your model in order to give it more detail. Subdivide is basically when you increase the iteration of turbo smooth, right? This is subdividing. Subdivide, subdivide, subdivide. So the way ZBrush gets more quality is by subdividing. So the way it subdivides here, guys, is exactly the same way ZBrush is going to subdivide. So I'm going to tell you what the big problem is when we subdivide here. See, in ZBrush, we're going to have to add a lot of detail. So we're going to crank up these settings, right? We're going to make it really high. But here's the problem, is that if you look at this, it's mostly white right where the edges are, and the polygons in the middle are not nearly as white. Why? It's because there's a lot more vertices here in the corner than in the middle. This could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing. Why? Well, it would be a bad thing for one particular reason. It would be a bad thing because if you don't have enough vertices in the middle, it means you can't add that much detail into the middle. Sure, on average, guaranteed, the most damage you're going to be adding is going to be on the sides. No doubt about it. You're dealing with bricks, you're dealing with anything with damage. The corners are definitely going to have the most damage on things. However, if you need to sculpt in the middle, you're going to be really restricted on the fact that you have 20 times more vertices here than over here. So how do we resolve this problem? Easy. Disable your modifiers under your box. Make sure you divide the box until you get a good sizable amount of triangles. Not triangles, but squares. So make sure that when you do this, you have a perfect square, like this. Right, like that. And if you add turbo smooth and chamfer, you can see that now that's a lot better. You can see although there's a lot more definition on the corners, the middle is a lot more evened out. And this will be great for sculpting on. All right, great. I'm going to go here to Effect Pivot Only, Center to Object. And I'm just going to center this right into my object here. Right, so it's right in the middle. I have snapping on. I can snap this right onto the pivot points. Right, now in this case, I need to move this up, so I'll press S to disable snapping and just move this up. Like that. Make sure it fits. Great. Now, to ensure that this is fully fitting, I can press S, and I can hold Shift and drag and snap it to the next vertex. Add some instances, 5. Great. So I don't need this. I could select this and just make a copy and offset it here. Just like that. Yes, you can do that. The only reason I'm adding Turbo Smooth now is so I can understand the shape, right? Eventually, when I export this out, I will delete Turbo Smooth. So this is good. We got that. So again, we won't make all of the pieces, but we'll probably make, of course, we'll make the bricks. Bricks are going to be important. We'll make the big slab of concrete here. So we'll get that down. So let me make a copy of this. And I'm just going to go here to box and make sure this is unique. And I'll set this to something like 400. Because I'm using grids, it should be very easy because I'm using grid points, right? Because 400, this whole plane should be 400. So if I try to snap this in the middle, you can see perfectly fits. Yeah, sure. I can show you the twist pattern. The twist pattern I basically did with line. So the one thing I did this with is basically I used the line. Make sure that you do have grid points on, and it should be as easy as doing something like this. And then we can add smoothing effects on it later on. So I'll get rid of that. And I'll do points just like this. Just like that. And maybe I could do it only one at a time, but let me attach them both. Let's see if we can just attach them both. Okay. And I need to make this all smooth. So I'm going to select on all of these. I can click smooth. And the bottom one smooth. Like that. I can select on this and I can see what's adjusting it. Maybe this needs a little bit more space. Yeah, it needs a little bit more space. When it comes to patterns, anything that you want to make seamless, I would recommend doing it with lines. Unless you're doing like a sculpted piece that you want to repeat. Okay. Now I got that. The only thing to point out is the small adjustments is that I probably will just detach one of these. Detach. Detach. Okay. The only reason why I'll detach one. Did I not detach all of them? Let me try. Let me try that again. Let me actually disable this as well, just because it's getting in the way. Okay, so I got that. Can I use a shortcut key? Control Alt D. No, it's not the shortcut key for this. It's a shortcut key for edit poly, but not for this one. Detach. Okay. That is good. So all I would do at this point is just select on the vertices that might be overlapping and adjust them. So maybe this I'll move up, 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 like that. And then this one I'll move down, down, down. Technically, I probably would want the same thing for the other side, but let's see if I could just do this. If I could just enable this. Like that. Change the length. Like that. And I think if I use mirror, so maybe I don't even have to use this and change this. I think if I just use mirror right up here, can mirror it, mirror with a copy. And there we go. We got two different ones on top of each other. This might need an extra point to make sure it's not skewing inside. Maybe move this a little bit higher. Yeah, better. Yep. So what I'll do is that for these two shapes, I would add a chamfer so it can go around all the edges. And if I add turbo smooth, I'll be able to get much more smoother curves. I got some problems happening here. Don't want that to happen. Let me try to change the smoothing groups. So I'll add smooth. Get rid of chamfer for a second. So I'll set to auto smooth. And now I'll add a chamfer. That's still happening. Maybe if I go here to on smooth edges. There we go. Now that should work. There we go. Nice and smooth. Right? So the idea is as long as you're doing it, and then when you put it onto the canvas, then you just make sure that you put it right in the halfway points. Because we made this with the grid, it should be easy to align it to the grid. So let's say, let me do it on this one. If anything, I probably just need to make more of these because I didn't make as much. Let's see if I can scale it down. But the good thing is that one thing to kind of note is that you don't really need to have trims from going one side to another. Although if you did have it from one side to another, it would mean that it would become fully seamless, right? And that could be a benefit. It means you can make things longer than normally. You could also make things just one small section so that you would have to unwrap only that one small section, like if you're making a button or just a piece of concrete. Yeah, so basically it will repeat okay once you get it evened out like this. I should have made a little bit more if I wanted more, but I probably can get away with doing like a symmetry at an earlier point here. Symmetry, flip it. Let me flip it. Yeah, let me make one more, copy, paste. Okay. That's basically a good idea. Symmetry line is causing a line here that I don't like. Let's see if I can change that line. Nope, still happening. Let me see why. Oh, you know why? It's because it's really close to another line. I probably have to remove that symmetry line otherwise. Okay, make only one line. After one line, it should work. Beautiful. Okay. Take that out. Press S and just drag up. I might have to move it up. And this might have to give a little bit more space. Okay. For this, I'm going to put it right here. You can see it doesn't perfectly align. Doesn't perfectly align. Any way I can fully fix that? Well, technically you could scale it. Technically you could scale it. You could also do this. If I add something like a slice, I can change the slice planer and just slice it. Say right in the middle here. The moment I see a transition, like that. Let's say copy, paste, flip this so it's negative, and just move it this side, and get to the same points where this was like that. Right? Now, what you could do is that you could just literally just put your pivot points right here. Right? Snap your pivot points right here. And we can scale it. In fact, you could just use something like an FFD. FFD might actually work a little better. 2 by 2. And yeah, I'll push this in. I'll just make sure that this is fully inside here. And then right here. Okay. All right, we got that. So something like this, although I made it, it's something that you probably could start painting right after that. You don't really need to bring it in ZBrush unless you want to do damages and chips on it, right? If you want to give it that hand feeling onto it, you can bring it into ZBrush. You can give it a little bit of sculpting. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in these objects into ZBrush, right? So we can sculpt on some of the bricks and also the large piece of concrete, and then we'll replace it for this. So let's do it. Let's cover on how to export to ZBrush.